So I'm going to talk a little bit to begin with about what I do for a living, so which bit of tech I do. Obviously I'm a woman, hopefully that's fairly obvious, but I'm also in tech. And I work for a company called Magnetic North, who I'll assume most of you don't know what we do, and I'll take you a little bit through that. And as some background, I guess, to a lot of my time and the company's time is in building brands. So it's a nice question to have to talk about brand and in some of the other things that I'm involved in. We make digital stuff of all kinds. We've been going about 15 years. We do a huge amount of work for the people over the road at the BBC. We do work in the kids space, so this is a wearable tech project we did with the BBC in the summer, which 35,000 people went to and participated in, which is pretty scary but very enjoyable. And then we do our own projects and bits of R&D and experimentation. This is a project called Plot that we did in the summer as part of Dig the City, which was a response to, I guess, the move towards the sharing economy, as it's kind of known in London. So the question is, does the industry need rebranding? I think probably everybody's going to say yes. The question is why, and I think there are obviously issues that you've described and you see in those stats that we see everywhere all the time, where people are on a large scale still not engaging with the brand of tech. I think there are some things that I've just identified that I'll talk a bit about, and maybe we'll do as a group session and talk about in a bit more detail, that I think these are the big kind of myths that we need to bust in order to change the perception of the brand of tech, whatever that might be. Tech is a horizontal, not a vertical. So in part of my life, I sit on the Greater Manchester LEP, which has lots of different sectors, lots of different representatives from private enterprise as well as public sector. And around that table, there's only two women around that table, and I'm the only person under 50. I'm certainly the only person from creative and digital. So we start to talk about brand and marketing and technology, and everybody kind of goes, "Ooh, what is this strange fluffy world you speak of?" And there's a tendency in that world, in a world that's focused on growth and reform and driving the economy forward, to think about tech as a kind of vertical sector. You know, there is the creative and digital sector, there's technology, and everybody feels comfortable with that because it's in a box. The reality is, I can't imagine any sector that in the next 5 years isn't going to be incredibly dependent on technology in some way, whether you work in fashion, whether you work in manufacturing, whether you work in science or data. You know, we're all going to depend on technological innovation. So I think the first thing is we need to stop thinking about it as a sector and think about it as something that runs through the future of our entire economy. The other thing that I think, and this is partly visual branding, you know, so partly getting this message across, partly who are the mentors, who are the people who inspire us, all these different points. But there is, and I have to say, is perpetuated wherever possible by white men under 25 occasionally, if they get the opportunity. But you don't have to be this kind of stereotype that's been created around the tech industry, led by Silicon Valley, that it's run by men who are white and aged under 25 and pretty cool and probably wear jeans and trainers and certainly have never touched a suit. You know, I guess we look at this particularly from a regional viewpoint, because that's where most of us are running our businesses and most of where we're engaged. And I think somehow, and this is where the city can support this agenda, we have to communicate to the outside world that there is tech life outside of Tech City. So the UK is so incredibly dominated, I mean, to an insane level, by London's agenda and London's tech bubble. And there are lots of incredibly passionate people in the city who are working really hard behind the scenes to try and break this. But we're going to have a brand. You know, the reason Tech Cities works is UKTI can get on a plane and they can tell everybody they meet about a really simple investment story that's called Tech City. So brand is incredibly important because that's what we need for people to write the checks. And then and I'll just end on this before, you know, we start to talk about the substance as well as the brand, which is, I think, you know, I'm a marketer by trade, so, you know, I'm obsessed with brand, but brand is only part of the problem. If the perception doesn't match the reality, so if we convince all these people to come through in droves and engage with the tech sector, and then the reality is nothing like the Instagram feed that we sold, there will be just as much of a problem. So I think addressing the substance is 50% of the job as much as addressing the brand.